Having everything you will need already visible and accessible not only helps you function well without losing time, but says a lot to the client about your professionalism as a technician. Your supplies and tools: pain control system, blue barrier film, different needles, drawing pencil, ring containers, feather touch pen, sharps container, box of pure pigment kit, permanent makeup solution, and Q-tips, cotton ball, and wipes are all going to be needed throughout the procedure, so they should be easy to get and within reach. Gloves and hand sanitizer. Prepare a set of the Pure Pigment Kit ready to use for shading and ombre as needed. Check that your lighting is sufficient and cords are out of the way. Check that your drawing pencil is sharp and needles are out for easy access. Feather touch procedure. Sit the client up on the procedure bed and cap her hair completely. Cleanse off any makeup, oils, or debris from the brow and forehead area and pat dry. The Perfect Guide Brow Ruler is specifically designed to fit easily over the contour of the client's brow area. Simple to use. Just place it across the client's forehead above the brows and tape each end to keep it securely in place. The ruler has a handy graph illustration. Begin with the area between the brows at the center of the bridge of the nose. Mark off the points where the brow head should start on each side as shown. This is called the nose midpoint. Use a second Perfect Guide ruler as an overlay to see if your marks line up well, without having to remove the aligned ruler on the client's face. Check correct measurements for the width of the eyebrow head. Mark lines up well. Now mark where the lower bottom of the hair grows to determine and create the desired thickness of the brow head. Mark the left and right arch and tail points by using the arch and tail indicator on the ruler. Draw a straight line across the forehead to check the balance line from center to both sides, which can be made more visible for symmetry. Use the second ruler and lay it from the outer nose across the cheekbone to the outer eye. Mark the length of the tail ending point for proper alignment as shown. Do the same on this side. Try to step back and check from a distance, then have the client lay down on the facial bed. To complete the brow shape, Connect the marks from the top of the brow head to the top arch with a soft curved line. Do the same on the other side as shown. Touch and feel the brow bone contour. Slide the tip of the pencil curvedly down to connect the top arch to the tail mark. Erase any extended line with a Q-tip as needed. Again, connect the marks from the lower brow head to the lower arch, making a soft curving line. Do the same from the lower arch to the tail point. If the lines appear too straight, use a Q-tip to lighten the line. Soften the straight line as needed. Connect the lower arch mark to the tail point. Follow the top line to draw the curve. Follow the same steps to connect the top marks on the other side. Complete the brow by connecting the lower marks to the lower arch. Connect the lower arch mark to the tail point. When finished with the brow shape, now we will wipe off all excess markings or lines that will not be used as part of the actual brow. Look at the finished brow design straight on, comparing both brows to see if the symmetry is good. Take a closer look at each side. Make sure your client is satisfied with the shape. Pre-numbing the procedure area. The prenum takes 15 to 25 minutes to take effect. Start with whichever brow you feel comfortable with, and using your fingers, stretch the skin firmly and taut so that the needle can flow smoothly and the brow design guide area is clear. Dip the design pen needle into the pigment. Carefully scrape off any excess on the rim of the pigment container. Tap the needle at the beginning of each line to ensure there is enough pigment flow for the stroke. Accurately space each following line 1.5 to 2 millimeters apart. Just like you practiced on the skin material, begin at the brow head, starting with the 6 fanned-out strokes. Staying within the brow design, follow the guideline, remembering the pen and hold placement for stability. The key is to have each stroke curve at a certain degree. Determine the angle direction and move the needle bit by bit. Notice how the skin surface is flexible, so it needs finger support. Lightly pulling the skin in the opposite direction is necessary. Hold the skin up to control the needle stability. Continue on the lower ridge strokes toward the side. Check the strokes on the lower ridge. The bend should be swept up and slanted. As you drag out the hair strokes, the curve angles should become flatter. The last lower ridge strokes should be against the edge of the lower brow outline. Switch to the upper ridge brow, holding the skin taut horizontally, adding downward strokes from the brow head. Progress along the upper ridge area with a 1.5 to 2 millimeter spacing, tracing the upper brow outline. Short, steady strokes create long, natural-looking feathered results. Repeat these steps, joining and blending. Note the index ring fingers can help support and stretch the working area. The hair strokes get shorter as the strokes move down toward the tail, as shown. Let's take a break here to examine what we've done so far. You can see where the outer ridge of the entire brow is done. The brow head is done. The lower and upper ridge line is done. At the end, we will apply Biogel to soothe the area and prevent swelling, and Verigel to help retain the implanted pigment color. Dab and press it into the entire brow with a Q-tip. This product does wonders for both you and the client. While you wait for the Biogel and Verigel to work, you can switch to the other brow. We will now start the same process on the opposite brow. Use the same steps and format as you did on the first one, placing a small towel over the work area first and blot away any moisture. Any moisture or leftover products can be slippery to your fingers, which prevents you from being able to stretch and support the skin. Once again, position your fingers comfortably where you can stretch the skin properly to create the brow ridge lines. But remember, begin with the 6-stroke brow head first, as shown. Work from the back of the client. Apply the brow head strokes upward. Remember, dap your needle to ensure proper pigment flow before dragging your needle bit by bit. Notice, there is some minor bleeding and fluid here. This is normal. Continue going over the lower brow ridge, following the brow guideline, so that the initial shape is established. Because this is the opposite brow, you may need to reposition yourself around to the side or behind the client's head and face in order to get a good view of the design patterns and symmetry, compared to the first brow. Continue until you reach the edge of the lower brow ridge. Switch to the upper ridge brow. Notice that only holding half of the ending portion of the eyebrow is not enough support. Look closely. With the first and second stroke, immediately feel the skin is loose and moving. This is caused by improper holding position. Remember that the stroke area should always be firmly stretched by the fingers. Stop and double check. Reposition again. Pull the tail part down tightly and start working on the tail. While the biogel sets on the brow just worked on, let's go back to the first one to examine how much saturation of color was retained. Wiping off all excess pigment to see if our brow design has been filled in properly and with the proper depth needed. We completed the process known as the first pass. To ensure there's going to be adequate color retention, we will cover the entire brow again with pigment, using a cotton swab as illustrated. Smear it in well, using a generous amount, making sure to really rub it in so that any light or mist areas are now covered and coated. Saturate it all. Don't be afraid to use a little pressure here, because it is important for the pigment to get down deep enough into the hair stroke so it will not fade after healing. Let it sit for 5 to 10 minutes, then wipe it off again with a clean cotton ball. Check again for evenness of color, complete hair strokes, and any gaps that need filling in. Clean off any residual pigment or anesthetic remaining and blot dry. See how soft and natural this looks. As you continue to gently blot the excess color off, also check your outer guideline around the entire brow to make sure that it too is complete with color and with no missing lines. For the second pass, we will start on the brow head and go over on the brow gently and accurately on top of any light strokes by inserting more pigment as needed. The key is to only saturate the strokes with more pigment without pressure. If there are any gaps, be sure to use the required pressure to drag out the strokes. The model in our demonstration has very light skin, so we chose a light color and therefore it required multiple passes. Be patient and prevent double lines. Change needles as necessary and check the sharpness of the needle. Make sure to wipe off along the way to check and ensure that the hair strokes have enough depth and color retention. The lower ridge strokes on the border can be inserted with more color. As you can see, we are inserting more pigment on top of the same strokes with more passes to ensure enough color saturation. Make sure to hold the skin tight again and repeat dabbing more pigment into the same strokes. Pay close attention to the appearance of the result. Go over the detail carefully. This will give a more satisfied client and avoid touch-ups and color fading. Clean out the excess pigment. Apply Verigel for soothing and locking in the color. It is time to check on the opposite brow and repeat additional steps. We want both brows to look the same, with the same natural direction, layering, and saturation of color intensity. Wipe off all excess pigment, clean and pat dry. Same as before, we want to examine what was accomplished in every pass and check for any light strokes or gaps. Constantly check both sides for symmetry, especially on the height of the arch and the length of the tail. It is critical that you do not deviate from your line. Doing so will cause double lines or make the line appear too thick or blurry. As we can see, there is some minor bleeding, which is normal. We can take care of that by applying Biogel or Easy Gel to stop the bleeding, but it is important to continue on as much as possible, so we'll be able to coat the entire brow afterwards. Continue on with the outer ridge lines and any other strokes that need to be darkened. Now we can go ahead and apply Biogel to soothe and eliminate bleeding to the entire brow. Wipe clean and pat dry. Check for penetration and saturation. We will cover the entire brow again with pigment, using a cotton swab as illustrated. Remember to use a little pressure because it is important for the pigment to get down deep enough into the hair stroke so it will not fade after healing. Wipe both brows clean. We are now finished with the final pass. Visually check that both brows look even and the strokes look natural. This time, we will apply a generous amount of Verigel to both brows entirely to soothe and give comfort, as well as eliminate any bleeding or swelling. Let it set for 3 minutes. When time is up, wipe both brows clean. Beautiful job! Both brows look even and the strokes look clear. Aftercare balm will be applied, which protects, soothes, and prevents blisters. Apply a generous amount over the brows with a Q-tip swab, as shown. Aftercare balm also has vitamins A, E, and aloe vera to speed up the healing process. The SPF 15 is for sun protection. For the final step in aftercare, we will apply bacitracin with a cotton swab. This antibiotic ointment will guard and protect against infection after the procedure so that healing can take place successfully. You can now have the client sit up and take a look in the mirror. Another happy client. And we love to hear those words. I love it. I like it. Go over any questions she may have and take a couple of after photos for your client file. Congratulations! Our client will now feel more confident and excited about how much better her brows frame her face. Her brow is not only long-lasting, but hassle-free. Proper disposal. The Biotouch design pen is crafted to give the technician a good grip with a sturdy threaded blade head, and is easy to screw on securely. This also makes changing the pen and needle out for a new sterile one between procedures safe and efficient. Used needles and pens are to be properly disposed of by putting them into a sharps container. Patch test. Performing a patch test on your client prior to the procedure is very important. Even though they have filled out the necessary forms indicating any allergies beforehand, they may not be aware of new experiments or any sensitivity in the services. The easiest way to do this is behind the client's scalp, underneath the hair. Wearing latex gloves, use a Q-tip to rub a small amount of anesthetic into the patch area. Then dip your tool into the pigment and apply a light scratching into the skin. Finish with aftercare, Verigel, and bacitracin, and wait for 24 hours. Here, we can test for any reaction to latex from the gloves, pigment, anesthetics, needles, antibiotic, or other. Of course, if you should see any redness or irritation from any of these tests, advise the client and do not do the procedure. Different seasons or times may work out better for a client, so perhaps they may want to wait some time and see if the patch test can be done again successfully. Sometimes it might be fine without any sensitivity, but it is always better to be completely sure. However, if the only irritation detected is from the latex gloves, you may be able to still perform the procedure. Just be sure to use latex-free vinyl gloves. Make notations in the client's file of any important observations. Again, we make every effort here to provide excellent footage of a live procedure and close-ups, but there is still much to benefit from coming to this certification course and class in person. Face-to-face instruction, along with observation on a variety of live models, will give you an advantage. Our students also learn so much more interacting with each other, which can build your confidence as you all learn together. We hope you have enjoyed this Biotouch tutorial. We are excited to hear about how you incorporate this requested service into your existing business.